get to see healing miracles every day in the office, and people come off medications and avoid surgeries and, get their life back because they couldn't function before they saw me. And to be able to be used by God like that is the ultimate blessing.
Hey guys, this is Dr. Heskett with Coffee with the Chiro. We have a very special guest, but before we introduce him today, a couple things we need to go over. We are excited about our upcoming event that we're having at Heskett Family Chiropractic, our Patient Appreciation Day. So look out for that. And if you are a patient and you're listening to this, or maybe you're not a patient, we want you to know that you are always welcome to come to our offices. Heskett Family Chiropractic, we have one in Morristown, Dandridge. Also, we have an office in East Knoxville, Straw Plains, as well as Rogersville. And if you have never been to our office, you mentioned you heard us on Coffee with the Chiro. And for $47, you can get your exam, consultation, and your x-ray for $47. That is fantastic. Now, without any further ado, I am flying solo today. Look out, everybody. I'm flying solo because today, Caroline is unavailable and is not allowed to be with us. She has, to be honest with y'all, she has a sty on her eye that's hurting her very badly. So everybody be in prayer for her. I told her to put a patch on it and join us, Dr. Mike, but she was not having it. I guess, unfortunately, she's in a lot of pain. So we'll be praying for you, Caroline, and also pray for me as I try to run this show because we are a tag team. So we kind of bounce off each other. But I want to introduce today's guest without any further ado. We have Dr. Mike Shaub with us from Nashville. He has 3 clinics, 3 offices in Nashville. He loves Jesus, loves chiropractic. He's been married to his wife, Lauren, for 16 years. She is actually a Morristown native. Hopefully he'll share a little bit about that. And Dr. Mike has 5 amazing girls between the ages of 3 and 12. So he's been adjusting and saving lives for around 13 years. So, Dr. Mike, welcome to today's Coffee with the Chiro podcast. It is great having you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, Doc. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And he's joining us in the car here because I'm sure he's in between checking these clinics out, making sure he's got these daughters. Anytime you got 5 daughters under the age of 12, can you imagine? We'll have to call him back when they're all girl teenagers. And so he's got good, thick, healthy hair now. I'll just say that. But wait till those girls get teenagers. Dr. Mike, we're going to jump right into it today. I want you to share with our listeners out there. We have primary listeners, a lot of patients. I want you to share with them, how did you get involved in chiropractic? Tell us your story of maybe from the beginning, how you got involved with chiropractic and up to today.
Oh, man, that's a loaded question, but that's a good question. I always say chiropractic chose me. I didn't even know what a chiropractor was up until I was like 22 years old. And so it really became more of a prayer thing because I was originally going to be in a vet career where I was in school to be in the pre-vet program. And God really changed my heart towards something else. And I at the time didn't know what it was. And that's eventually led me to chiropractic. And again, it really came down to who God put in my life. And as you know, Dr. Heskett, you were an integral part of that, how God used you to confirm my next 50 years, which is pretty crazy to even to hear that gives me goosebumps because it's like, wow. I mean, like that is special because between using my Nana to even say, hey, you'd be a good chiropractor. I'm like, what is that? And why would I be good at that? And then all the way to praying, researching the profession. And then coming into your office, I don't know if you remember that day where I walked in, but you didn't know this, but I literally prayed out in your parking lot, the one in Morristown. I was visiting my wife, and of course I was at Carson Newman at the time, and the prayer was really simple. It was like, God, if this is what you want me to do, then that's going to be known right now. After this visit to Dr. Heskett's office, I'm going to know 100% if this is for me or it's not. And from the time I walked into your office, met your staff, obviously it was a really awesome high energy experience. If anybody's been to your office, they know that. But then it really, really confirmed to me is when you and I were talking to a patient, and she really needed some prayer. And he's like, can Mike and I pray with you? And I was like, wait a minute, you can do that? You can do that in an office? And
Mm.
and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, that was my confirmation. Like, all right, God, this is what you want me to do the rest of my life, because of that moment right there. And so, I've thanked you for that in the past, but thank you so much for being obedient to what God wanted you to do at that moment. Because that was a pivotal point for me. And then 13 years later, 3 clinics over here in Nashville, and the pivotal moment for me was that moment where you were like, "Hey, let's pray for this patient." And in my mind, I'm thinking, "Wow, you can do that in this profession, and share the gospel and pray with patients. Like, that is something I can get down with." And it was at that moment where God just hit me with a ton of bricks, saying, "This is your confirmation," you know. And so I thank you for being obedient to what God called you to do that day, because you didn't know how pivotal that was for me at the moment. You were just doing you, and I
Mm.
thought that was real special. And of course, that's transformed my area, my career since then. 3 offices, and the story continues.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And so you came in that day. You're at Carson Newman, which is college right here. You
Yep.
came in that day with a friend, right?
Well, so my
Yeah.
roommate,
Who?
was going to you. Yeah, my roommate went to you. He was playing football. Him and I were roommates together, and we played football together there at Carson Newman. And his name
Yes.
was Kyle, and he said, go see my doc. He's awesome. He's hilarious. You would love him. High energy. So it was a
Yeah.
no-brainer. Yeah.
That's so good, man. So just we're not going to take a lot of time today because I know you're running, but I want to ask you because my mom asked me this question. She's 89. She asked me this question just a couple days ago. Why 3 offices? Like why do you think you know why do you think you are where you are right now 13 years into practice?
That's a great question. I mean, it really boils down to something real simple. It's in my heart, my mind, my spirit. It's more offices, more lives saved, and that was the whole driving force and vision behind opening more offices. Is that can create a lot of freedoms, but it also can create a lot of opportunities for certain areas that don't have chiropractic, and they're not doing it really well. And that was my driving force behind opening multiple offices. So, expanding borders, basically.
So just a little bit, if for those the basis of that answer, in case some of it got cut, is he's saying that you know there's so many areas that people can't access chiropractic, and I already knew the answer. That's why I asked it. Is I know you have a heart to serve people, to make sure that chiropractic care is available to people that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to get it, and so that's just fabulous. One of the things I want to share with you too, I think, is that my mom said after asking me that, she told me that she said, "Are you going to open another office?" And I said, "Well, what do you think?" And she looked at me and she said, "Here's what I think. If it's for you, then no. But it's for the people, then yes." And I just thought she's 89, and I was like, man, that's so solid.
Yeah,
So that's
that's a
pretty
great.
much how what it boils down to is if there's an area that God calls you to, it's something where you're like, yeah, sure, let's do that. But if it's for our own benefit, then we know it's not from God and we shouldn't do it. But that's
Right.
just fantastic. So I want you to share briefly here. Just share what has been the biggest blessing of being able to take care of people on the daily. Like, what's the biggest blessing in your life, would you say, being a chiropractor, adjusting patients, and even, managing three offices, several, obviously you have several docs, several employees. What has been the biggest blessing in doing that?
Um, giving, leading the team. So I love training. I love training new doctors. I love um, creating leaders, um, which is kind of not an obvious answer because that creates more work for me. But I see it as an investment, and pouring into these new docs, trying to teach them the principle of chiropractic that we were created by God for God, and we can't serve Him if we're sick or dead. And so we have a responsibility as chiropractors uh, to fulfill that purpose that God put us on earth for. And so to be able to instill that in young guys and girls who are coming out of school, it's so challenging because they're so green and so fresh, but at the same time, it's so rewarding and such a blessing that they turn out the way they do, and they go on to serve, whether it's with me or another clinic. I've had several docs move on to other clinics because of that leadership quality that I've got to instill within them. The other blessing is the obvious one, right? Which we get to see healing miracles every day in the office, and people come off medications and avoid surgeries, and get their life back because they couldn't function before they saw me. And to be able to be used by God like that is the ultimate blessing.
That's so good, man. And one of the things that, just so our listeners, they don't know you. So our listeners would know that the most important thing about Dr. Mike, as far as I'm concerned, is he's not just leading his chiropractic office, but also his family. I can't imagine the day to day and being, you know, being the dad of 5 girls. I mean, it's got to be just unbelievable blessings, but also, there's something different. I know this personally from having 3 girls, and of course we got Gage, but there's a higher level of responsibility as a dad, I feel, when you have girls. So just share with everybody a little bit about the family dynamic, and just because I know Lauren personally, and I know that God brought y'all together, and I know your friend group, and I kind of watch from the outside in. I'm not on Facebook anymore, but I see the kids growing, and I've seen that. So just tell us a little bit about the family dynamic and how important that is to you.
Oh, I mean, it's everything, right? And so my new thing right now is it's I have to date 6 women right now. You know what I mean? And that's a tough job for any man. So my big thing is quality time, and that's one thing I really gleaned from or learned from with how I was raised, but also the late Dr. Majors. I was able to really live with him and watch how he works with his kids, and spends individual time with each one. And so as my girls are getting older, um, and Lauren and I are getting younger, so her and I, obviously we're still dating, and so I've got to make sure that we're in one accord and still dating. But now as my girls get older, I want to make sure that they understand what quality time is with their dad, and what that looks like for even a future mate, how a man is supposed to treat you. And so my big focus has been trying to take them on little dates and spend that quality time with them one on one, and that's been awesome. Love that.
That's so good, dude. So if a patient is listening right now, obviously, you have years upon years of experience. Like, what is the number one thing that you would encourage a patient to do if they're listening to this podcast and they're like, man, I'm just stuck in my care, or I'm stuck with chiropractic? Like, what's some advice that you would throw out there to say, hey, look, if you would just change this thing, or these 2 things, or these 3 things, what would that be?
Another great question, which is a loaded question. So if I had a patient in front of me, which we've had throughout our career, right? Where a patient gets stuck or they just stop progressing. I immediately go into questions, so I start asking them, um, where are you compared to when you first started? What are you doing? What we recommend when we first, like a 3 time a week patient they're gung ho, they're ready to go. Chiropractic's the best thing since sliced bread. And then a lot of times, like all of us, we lose our first love, right? And so, in other words, we lose the thing, or we forget about the basics, what we were doing in the beginning that we stopped doing because we feel better, like your office and my office and a lot of chiropractic patients, they're gonna feel better. That's a guarantee, right? Which is a blessing and a curse, because pain's a great motivator to keep going and doing the right thing. When somebody feels great, we go back to, well, I feel great, I'm going to stop doing what I was doing before. And then all of a sudden we feel stuck because those things keep coming back. And so I guess my one encouragement to those patients that we have that had that experience is go back to the basics, go back to doing your home care. If you're missing adjustments, go back to being consistent with those adjustments. Start changing nutrition again. Go back to avoiding bad food. Work out a little bit. It's nothing crazy, but really just go back to the basics and find out where they're missing that. So I ask a lot of questions, find out what's going on with their life.
That is absolutely incredible because what he just described to all of the patients is what we teach in our new Better Results Faster workshop, the three-legged stool. He went
Yeah.
over all three of those adjustments in rhythm, getting adjusted, following the plan, not missing your visits. He went over corrective exercises. Even when you start feeling better, remember, health is not a feeling, it's a function. So you can feel great and have a heart attack. You can feel great and have breast cancer. So he talked about corrective exercises, and then he just right there went into the bad nutrition, which is breaking bad habits. So when we break the bad habits, we do the corrective exercises, we get adjusted in rhythm. That's how we're going to see the results. And so that was fantastic and spot on. That's what we've been teaching, and that
Right.
just confirms that not only, even though he didn't even know he was going to get asked that question, but that's exactly what I'm saying. If you want to be healthy, we have to take responsibility and ownership of our health. So if you're listening to this and maybe you're feeling better, or maybe you're just stuck, then we got to go back to the basics and make sure you're following your plan, corrective exercise, and make sure you're breaking those bad habits. Last question I have for you, and
Yeah.
this is more of a personal question for me. I'm just going to ask you, where do you see, where is Dr. Mike Shaub 10 years from now? This might be a cameo question, but I'll ask it anyway. Like
Yeah.
10 years from now, like where do you want to be, or where do you see? And the reason I ask for that there's a lot of our listeners that listen to the podcast regularly. So we want to pray for you. We want to continue to encourage you. We're so grateful for what you're doing in the Nashville area, and we just know it's just the beginning. So let's, just say 10 years, just an overview, like where you want to be.
Yeah. Uh, Another great question. um, 5 to 10 years, and so I want to create a life that obviously continues to have purpose, serving patients. Obviously, I still see myself physically being in an office adjusting. I don't know if I'll ever give that up. I really don't. Even if I'm adjusting, they're trying to kick me out and they're saying you're too old. I'm still gonna go twice a week. You know what I mean? Like, but 10 years from now, I mean, I'll be almost 53 10 years from now. So I've got a long way to go. And whether that means another office or maybe two more offices, or helping to train other offices up, I'm open and I'm praying. And of course, I know that God's going to reveal that to me. But those are some of those long term goals I have. And that is, probably the most candid answer I can give. Like, there is, I feel like I still have so much to give,
Mm.
um, whether that's raising new leaders within the profession or building new offices for those who don't know how to or have never built an office. Um, while maintaining some of mine. So yeah, that's kind of where I see my next 5, 10 years.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And what I love about that answer too is it's kind of how I know you're open to, if God called you to Sherman to be the president, or if God called you, I know you're open to doing whatever's necessary to promote, protect, and love this profession that has given back so much to you. Yesterday, we were a doctor down yesterday, so I was in there and I was, how you gotta use the bathroom, but you can't go because there's so many people. It was one of those deals. It was one of those deals. So uh, I was just thinking about how good God has been over the 28 years. Because I'm your next. You talk about 51, or 53. I'm 51, turned 52 this year. So I'm kind of where you're going, and so to speak, if the Lord tarries and we're around that long and the Lord doesn't come back. But if that happens, so I'm sitting here I like to ask that question because I just feel like there's so much to be done. There's so many people that need chiropractic that are out there, and I know you feel the same way. And so we're going to continue to just lift you up and pray for you and Lauren and the kids as you move forward. And we have been honored to have you as a guest on Coffee with the Chiro. None of these questions I sent to Mike, and the reason I didn't do that is because I didn't want him to know what the questions were. I didn't want the answer that he could think of. I wanted whatever God put on his heart. And so it's been a blessing and an honor to share this time with you. We're excited if you are a listener and you're listening to this and you are interested in learning more about God, family chiropractic, the things we talked about today. Dr. Mike is going to be a guest speaker at the Chiropractic Revolution in Nashville, in his backyard, November 1st and 2nd. He's already committed to bringing 50 of his people with him there. or actually just did. So he's bringing his whole village. But Dr. Mike is sharing there. I'm going to be sharing there. We got some great speakers. We're going to sit around and talk about what God is doing in our life and how we can be better at serving the Lord, a better steward for what God's given us, also our families, as well as chiropractic. So, Dr. Mike, thank you for your time today. God bless you, and thanks for being on Coffee with the Chiro.
Love you, Doc. Appreciate you. It was an honor.
Love you too, bro.
All right.